Hello and welcome to this chess endgame review of how to win a pawn-only endgame. So in this position, it is white's turn to move, and we see that white has this extra pawn. So in pawn-only endgames, usually the side with an extra pawn will win. Although you have to look at each position individually, there may be exceptions. If it's a rook pawn or there are doubled pawns. But one thing to remember in these pawn-only endgames is if there were pieces on the board as well, it would make all the difference in the world. So if each side had a rook or each side had a queen, that can make a huge difference, and it would be more likely if there were rooks on the board, it'd be more likely to be a draw. So let's see here. What would you do if you had white in this position? White should be winning, but how do you go about doing that? All right, pause the video if you want to look at it further. If not, we'll jump in and see here. All right, so we see white is ahead in this position by almost plus 1.5. And in the end games, you have to use your kings to try and get the win here. So we have the kings moving to the center of the board. So white gets there first. Black tries to cut him off. And also white must use his pawn majority here on the queen side. And normally you want to push the unopposed pawn forward. And so in this game, the king moves closer to this pawn majority to help escort this pawn forward. And the black king tries to stop him by gaining the opposition here. But now the unopposed pawn just pushes forward. And in this position, we have f6 played. But we see what would happen if instead the black king would move instead of this f6 move. If he moves to the left or the right. Well, if he does that, then the king would be able to swing around and gain ground here. And here he would just help attack these pawns. Black would have to go back to help protect them. And the game may continue with once white has stopped any progress over here, he can push this pawn forward to limit the options for black here. So black can push a pawn forward to see what white does next. And after h3, we have this move. And now the pawns will be broken apart on the king side. And white now plays back on the queen side, attacking here. And so if we have a capture, now this a pawn is unopposed and can try and push forward. So the king will have to try and stop these pawns. And after h4, here, white can just press this pawn forward and exchange off. And then black will have to stop the remaining pawn, giving white time to go over and pick off these kingside pawns and allow one of his pawns to promote to a queen. So if we go back to this position here where the kings are opposing each other, black played f6 to keep the opposition here. But after b5, we have h5, and then f4, and then so now black is trying to keep his king in front of white's king with the opposition by moving pawns. But after capture, h3, h4, black is running out of moves here. And so now we have king having to retreat as he is running out of moves. He could have tried to move this pawn here to b6, but we'll look at that in a little bit to see how that may have played out. But the game continues with white moving forward. The king rushes over to protect the queenside pawns, and white heads to the other side. But after king to c8, white steps back to the queen side as the black king has given ground here. And now after a takes b5, we have a recapture, and white has a pawn majority still, but now the a pawn is unopposed. So before we continue with the finale of this position, let's go back and look at, instead of here the a pawn capturing, what if b6 was played? Well, then it shows white is winning, but after capture, it is not exactly clear at first glance. Looking at the computer evaluation, of course, you can see what's going on, but white can move over here, and if the pawn tries to run, then we have this position here. And black would queen first, but then we would have a mate. So black avoids those exchanges and pushing that b pawn forward. And instead of pushing this b pawn forward, we have capture, capture, and now black tries to hold the opposition, but the pawn that's unopposed pushes forward, and after an exchange, now black has to stop this passed pawn. And so this gives white time to pick off the kingside pawns and promote his pawn. And we see black cannot make it there in time. This pawn will promote and white will win easily then. So just remember, in these pawn-only endgames, if you have one extra pawn, many times that is enough to win. So also, if you're defending and you're down a pawn, try to avoid exchanging off all material. If you can leave rooks on the board or queens, you'll have more of a fighting chance in the end game. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have, please like and subscribe. Feel free to leave comments or suggestions, and check out my Nick Butts chess channel where you can enjoy more videos. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.